This little girl's name is Ju. Right now, she's entering an old woman's dreams to find out why she's been perpetually ill. When she opens her eyes, she already knows the problem. So, she tells the old woman's son, "The location of your ancestral grave isn't good. It's surrounded by water on all sides, making the ancestors uncomfortable. Simply move the grave towards the sun, and your mother will quickly recover." Ju doesn't do this for money, but to solve mysteries and help people. Just receiving praise from the villagers is enough to satisfy her. But tall trees catch strong winds, and her misfortune has just begun. Ju's mother warns her not to flaunt her special ability, but the girl says she's happy to help people out of their difficulties. Her mother finally warns her not to assume all humans are good. But at this point, she's still naive and doesn't understand what her mother means. That day, the queen earnestly prays under the sacred tree, hoping her son will wake up. Just then, a court lady tells the queen, "Rumor has it, there's a girl among the commoners who can awaken those in a deep sleep." Hearing this, the queen, seeing a glimmer of hope, sends for the girl. Ju begins to interpret the crown prince's dreams, but from her expression, it seems the prince's condition is very serious. She explains that too many people have died at the hands of the royal family, and their souls cry out in the prince's dreams. The queen anxiously asks, "Can my son still be saved?" Ju suggests exhuming the bodies of those wrongfully killed and reburying them facing the sun, while also holding a memorial service. She will stay by the crown prince's side day and night, comforting each soul individually. So, every night, Ju enters the crown prince's dreams. Initially, she furrows her brow, but gradually her expression softens. The crown prince's health also steadily improves. The girl then bids farewell to the queen and says, "The crown prince will awaken soon." The queen is immensely grateful and orders a generous reward be prepared. Even though the girl repeatedly refuses, the gifts are delivered to her home. Sure enough, the crown prince awakens soon after, but he occasionally laughs vacantly. Seeing this, the queen feels her son seems like he's lost his soul. A court lady, using her limited intelligence, remarks, "Could this be a side effect of the dream interpretation?" Upon hearing this, the queen immediately orders an investigation. Meanwhile, Ju's mother's hair suddenly manifests a strange phenomenon. She instantly has a bad premonition. As a shaman, she can foresee that this will be a great tribulation. Indeed, the human heart is the most terrifying thing. The court lady sneaks near their house and overhears the villagers gossiping. Just by gently interpreting dreams, she's received so much gold, silver, and jewelry. Surely, every night she seduces the crown prince in his dreams, taking this opportunity to become part of the royal harem. Otherwise, why would the crown prince seek her out every night? Knowing disaster is imminent, Ju's mother tells her to pack their belongings and return to their hometown immediately, that very night. She tells her daughter to go as far away as possible and never come back. Ju asks if they'll go together, but her mother only removes the hairpin from her hair, telling her to hold onto it tightly. It will lead her to her benefactor. Ju hasn't traveled far when she sees her house at the foot of the mountain engulfed in flames. Seeing this, she immediately returns home, but by then, her mother is already dead. Overwhelmed by grief, she stumbled to the sacred tree, knocking over all the offerings on the table. She looked despairingly at the place where her mother had breathed her last. Then, she cursed, vowing that even in death, she would take the entire royal family down with her. She hung a silk sash on the sacred tree and took her own life. But then, something strange happened. Red streaks like fire spread throughout the sacred tree. Unbelievably, the millennia-old tree was consumed by her resentment and burned. After her death, Ju arrived in the underworld. The king of the underworld looked at the record of her death and declared that because of her actions, the sacred tree protecting the nation had been destroyed, leading the neighboring country to declare war. 100,000 people had died as a result. According to the rules, she would be banished to the 18 levels of hell. The girl silently accepted. Being banished was fine, it didn't matter. Seeing Ju's calmness, the king of the underworld said that she must first atone for her sins. She must return to the human world and help 100,000 people resolve their regrets, listen to their worries, and comfort them. But the girl immediately refused. She'd rather go to hell than help those ungrateful humans. Unexpectedly, the king of the underworld showed her a royal decree. When she opened it, she was instantly terrified, her hands trembling uncontrollably. Then, she suddenly volunteered to accept the mission to redeem herself. 500 years passed, and Walju always wore the hairpin her mother had left her. She didn't age or die until she completed her task. She and her assistant, Guai, assigned by the king of the underworld, started a roadside eatery. But it was a wolf in sheep's clothing. The real purpose of the eatery was to listen to people's troubles, help them relieve their anxieties, and thereby complete her mission. Initially, in ancient times, people readily shared their worries with others. Her task of helping 100,000 people seemed like it would be completed quickly. But by the 21st century, people seemed more guarded, not as willing to open up as before. Every time a customer came, Walju's occupational instincts kicked in. This person, with vacant eyes, dry cracked lips, sallow skin, and trembling hands, was clearly going through something that was fraying their nerves. Seeing someone like this, Walju knew this was her target. So, Walju curiously asked the girl what was wrong. The girl started to speak, and Walju held her breath, focusing intently, but then the girl hesitated and said, "It's nothing." She even consoled herself, saying, "Life is just like this. It'll be all right after a while." Hearing this, Walju was furious. "Finish your food and get out." Walju was only 10 people away from her goal of 100,000. But 2 years had passed, and she still hadn't reached it. Were people's self-healing abilities that strong now? Guai started to taunt her. "Who told you to hang yourself on the sacred tree? I used to hunt ghosts, and now I'm stuck here as your assistant, wasting my talents peeling onions." They sat there, brainstorming how to get modern people to open up. But they were unaware of someone out there whose fate was intertwined with theirs. In a supermarket, an old woman was counting eggs. A young man named Kang Bi had told her 5 times that there were 29 eggs in the carton. After saying that, he was about to put them in her bag when she stopped him. The moment her hand touched his, he knew he was in trouble. Sure enough, a second later, the old woman's mind seemed to have a mind of its own, spilling all her pent-up frustrations. "My husband has been bedridden for years. I'm the only one taking care of him. I'm exhausted." Kang Bi could only offer words of comfort. Kang Bi felt deeply uncomfortable with his special ability, even with a classmate he hadn't seen in 10 years, who extended a hand to shake his. He hesitated, unable to bring himself to reciprocate. His friend, aware of Kang Bi's peculiar aversion to physical contact, quickly launched into a conversation about his recent business success. He reminisced about their old days, mentioning he'd even considered becoming sworn brothers with Kang Bi. Just as the friend was about to take a sip of water, someone bumped into him, causing him to spill it. Kang Bi rushed to offer him a napkin. In doing so, he accidentally brushed his friend's hand, sending a jolt, like an electric current, through the friend's brain. "Are you okay?" Kang Bi asked. To his surprise, his friend replied, "I'm fine. Why do you think I came looking for you? I tried reaching out to other classmates, but they all ignored me. I had no choice but to come to you. Only a fool like Kang Bi would always be available." He continued, "Everyone knows I'm in the gem business. They're all smart. Only a fool like you would actually meet up with me." Kang Bi thanked him for remembering him, but his friend pressed on. "I just thought you were easy to take advantage of, someone I could swindle out of some money." Kang Bi felt a pang of hurt in his chest. At that moment, his friend seemed to snap out of it, completely unaware of what he had just said. Kang Bi fell silent, pondering, "Is this how I'm going to have to live from now on?" The next day, in the supermarket, the opportunity to change his life arrived. A man was sampling some beef, the taste of which seemed to bring him immense satisfaction. As the saleswoman, Myran, highlighted the beef's qualities, he impatiently urged her to grill it faster so he could have another bite. Impatient with her pace, he snatched the tongs from her, grilling the meat himself. Myran protested, explaining that she could get fired, and tried to retrieve the tongs, only to be berated by the man. She was at a loss for how to handle such a difficult customer. Her pride wounded and infuriated by the man's smug enjoyment of the beef, Myran grabbed a piece of raw meat and threw it at him. The man ducked, and the meat flew straight into Kang Bi's face. Myran was mortified and apologized profusely. Two figures, Wall Ju and another, passed by, initially dismissing the scene as a typical altercation. Having lived for 500 years, they had seen it all. However, when they heard the man condescendingly dismiss Myran as just a sales clerk, Wall Ju snapped. She grabbed the man by the throat and lifted him effortlessly into the air, despite his weight of at least 150 pounds. Wall Ju despised those who took advantage of others. It reminded her of 500 years ago, when she had helped people interpret their dreams and escape misfortune, only to be accused of cursing them in their sleep. This had led to her mother's death in a fire. Throwing the man aside, Wall Ju's rage finally subsided. Kang Bi stood by, jaw agape in astonishment. Back home, Guai, her supervisor, scolded her. "Why don't you just print flyers and tell everyone you've lived for 500 years? Wall Ju knew Guai was reprimanding her for her impulsive outburst. Later that evening, as Kang Bi was leaving work, he saw Myran looking distraught. Suddenly, she stepped out into oncoming traffic. Seeing the impending disaster, Kang Bi rushed towards her, shielding her with his body. At the last second, the driver slammed on the brakes. As Myran came to her senses, the driver yelled at them, "Find another car to scam, don't drag me into this." Kang Bi's legs trembled with fear. Myran apologized again, and, worried about her, Kang Bi suggested they have dinner together. "I'm hungry," he added. Conveniently, there was a restaurant nearby. Entering the store, Kang Bi realized it was run by a familiar face, the woman from the supermarket, Wall Ju. Looking at Myran, Wall Ju sensed something was troubling her and wanted to draw it out. Myran remained silent for a long moment before finally saying, "Nothing's wrong." Wall Ju grew impatient, unsure how to coax Myran into opening up. Myran noticed the pack of pain relievers Kang Bi had bought for her. Remembering how she'd hit him in the face with the meat earlier, Kang Bi reassured her, "It's okay," but Myran, still concerned, wanted to check for herself. When she touched Kang Bi's hand, a jolt, like an electric current, shot through her. Kang Bi thought to himself, "Well, you touched me, this has nothing to do with me." Sure enough, Myran declared she needed to get something off her chest. Kang Bi realized he'd inadvertently triggered another episode and resigned himself to listening. Wall Ju watched, eyes wide with surprise. Myran explained how she'd been putting up with unreasonable customers, hoping to keep her job, but her manager had been making unwanted advances. He'd feign encouragement, suggesting she needed to find ways to impress him, and had even made inappropriate physical contact. Wall Ju bristled with anger. Even Kang Bi, slightly drunk, cursed the manager, calling him a beast. Wall Ju asked Myran, "What would it take to make you feel better?" Myran replied, "I want him to feel what it's like to be cornered and helpless." Wall Ju shooed Kang Bi away to splash water on his face and sober up. Then she poured Myran a glass of a mysterious liquor, beautifully named the Sorrow Chaser. In reality, it was a dream-inducing potion. Soon, Myran felt overwhelmingly drowsy. She closed her eyes and drifted off. Strangely, she found herself in a room filled with security camera footage of her manager harassing her. Terrified, she sank to the floor. But then another camera angle appeared, showing an empty supermarket where the harassment continued. As she turned, she transformed into a monstrous being, scaring her manager into a panicked flight. No matter how he ran, Wall Ju kept appearing in front of him. He resorted to throwing food at her, but within the dream, Wall Ju reigned supreme, and his attempts were futile. Kang Bi, having gone outside to freshen up, returned to find the store flickering in and out of existence. Assuming he was still drunk, he walked inside. But the owner, Wall Ju, was nowhere to be seen, only Myran slumped over a table, asleep. As Kang Bi reached out to wake her, he vanished, reappearing inside the supermarket. What the hell is going on, he wondered. Suddenly, he heard a scream. He saw the manager, brandishing a knife at Wall Ju. Reacting instantly, Kang Bi shoved a shopping cart into the manager, knocking him unconscious. Wall Ju, seeing this, made him spin uncontrollably. "Kid," she exclaimed, "what are you doing here?" Kang Bi was equally confused. He'd just been in the store moments ago. "You shouldn't be able to see the store," Wall Ju said, demanding to know who sent him. Kang Bi insisted he wasn't with anyone. Wall Ju grew even more frustrated. A mere mortal shouldn't be able to enter someone else's dream. Kang Bi was utterly bewildered. Just then, Guai, the supervisor, arrived. Ju, sensing something unusual about Kang Bi, urged caution. Guai used his powers to examine Kang Bi. A bright light appeared above Kang Bi's head as Guai declared his spiritual vision portal was still open. While Kang Bi had no idea what a spiritual vision portal was, he figured it was probably the thing on his head. Guai concluded Kang Bi had a special constitution. Suddenly, everything clicked for Kang Bi. This explained his lifelong aversion to touch. He asked Guai if there was a way to change his constitution. Guai replied that it was a simple matter. Just as Kang Bi was about to ask for Guai's help, Ju noticed their quarry was getting away. They lost interest in Kang Bi, rushing off to attend to their unfinished business. Kang Bi was walking down the street when he accidentally stepped on an antique hairpin. He carefully picked it up, examining it closely. Suddenly, he realized something. Could it be that everything that happened yesterday wasn't a dream? But then he reconsidered. This was too bizarre. It couldn't possibly have happened. Yet, this hairpin clearly belonged to Ju. Kang Bi then recalled someone waving their hand in front of his face last night. So, he followed his memory to the roadside stall from the previous night. Meanwhile, Ju was receiving orders from King Yumra. King Yumra reminded her that she only had 1 month left. If she failed to collect 1,000 grievances, she would be condemned to hell. Ju flew into a rage. Aren't there only 9 more people left? Is King Yumra in such a rush to be reincarnated? With that, Ju got dressed and went out to find people burdened by troubles. Suddenly, she remembered Kang Bi's unique ability. He could make others spontaneously pour out their hearts. The thought made her ecstatic. Now, if she could just convince Kang Bi, finding the remaining 9 would be a piece of cake. With that thought, she immediately went to find Kang Bi. And at that very moment, Kang Bi was also looking for her. The two met on a bridge. "Please, save me. You're truly my last hope." To her surprise, Ju succeeded without even trying. She cheerfully agreed to Kang Bi's request. But Ju demanded something in exchange. Kang Bi looked himself over. He had nothing to offer. Ju suggested using his body, his special ability, in exchange. Very quickly, a contract was drafted. But Kang Bi immediately noticed something unusual. Why was the work period only 1 month? If he didn't meet the quota, she wouldn't help Kang Bi close his spiritual sight portal. This made Kang Bi feel Ju was untrustworthy. It was highly likely she intended to exploit his labor. He immediately touched Ju's hand, wanting to know what her true intentions were. But Ju told him to cut it out. That trick wouldn't work on her. This made Kang Bi even more hesitant to sign the contract. Ju immediately stood up to sweet-talk Kang Bi. "Look, I've already accomplished so much. Isn't the rest just a small matter?" But Kang Bi still found her untrustworthy and left immediately without a second glance. Ju realized that without Kang Bi, she truly couldn't complete her mission on time. So, this time, she decided to take a gamble. Ju tracked Kang Bi down to the supermarket where he worked. Seeing her, he was very surprised, and Ju, it turned out, had planned ahead. She had prepared an incredibly lavish spread of food. The manager curiously asked about her relationship with Kang Bi. That was a sharp question. Ju said she was there to poach talent. The manager immediately became wary of Ju. She quickly clarified, "Don't worry, we'll just have him work part-time in the evenings. It won't affect his work here." The more Kang Bi listened, the more uncomfortable he felt. To stop Ju from spouting more nonsense, he pulled her outside. Ju had the contract ready and asked him if he would finally sign it or not. Kang Bi was stubborn. If he said he wouldn't sign, he wouldn't sign. But Ju had a second trick up her sleeve, one that would force him to sign. Inside the supermarket, Kang Bi was utterly bewildered. People were rushing in, scrambling for discounted items. The poor guy was trapped in the middle of the crowd. What was even more terrifying was the effect his touch had on others. Sure enough, a second later, everyone he inadvertently brushed against froze. Then, they stopped scrambling for discounted goods and instead started clamoring to share their woes with him. 1 or 2 people were manageable, but a whole crowd talking at once felt like it would burst his eardrums. Having no other choice, he could only try to flee. Meanwhile, the mastermind Ju was enjoying the show from afar. Luckily, Kang Bi was smart enough to hide in a children's display bed. But how could he outsmart a 5-year-old cunning fox like her? So, he had no choice but to compromise. Walju had to pull out all the stops to get Kang Bi to sign that contract. But just as he was about to sign, Kang Bi asked if he could have a trial period first, just in case he wasn't cut out for the job. That's fine, she conceded. Walju told Kang Bi to start seeing clients that night. But, as fate would have it, the mother and daughter who came to eat that evening were his neighbors. Just then, the daughter received a call from her boyfriend, completely oblivious to her mother coughing up blood. Walju knew the old woman was troubled, especially since her daughter had just taken a call from her boyfriend and left. Walju reminded Kang Bi that his opportunity had arrived. So, Kang Bi seized the chance to take her hand, telling her to eat a little more. Instantly, her mind registered the connection. Walju sat beside them, tense and watching. Sure enough, shortly after, the woman sat down and declared herself the most sinful person in the world. Saying something like that, she definitely had a heavy heart. Mrs. Andong recalled her younger days. Although she was a widow, she ran a herring shop. Business was quite good, and she even hired a young woman named Sun Hwa to help out. But she had always treated Sun Hwa like her own sister. Seeing that Sun Hwa was an orphan, Mrs. Andong cherished her even more. But one day, a young man suddenly came to the shop, and Mrs. Andong immediately fell in love with him. Afterward, the young man came every day, so Mrs. Andong would put on beautiful makeup daily, just hoping he would fall for her. As time went on, the three of them became very close, even taking photos together. But the ridiculous thing was, Mrs. Andong had no idea she was the third wheel in the other two's relationship. Those two had long harbored feelings for each other, but some things simply couldn't be hidden. That day, the young man announced that Sun Hwa was pregnant. This news hit Andong like a bolt from the blue, because Sun Hwa had told her she didn't trust men and would never marry. At that moment, the seeds of resentment began to sprout in Mrs. Andong's heart. Very quickly, Sun Hwa gave birth to a baby girl. But Mrs. Andong's anger still hadn't subsided. She drank alone, and the more she thought, the angrier she became. Little did she know, this alcohol would lead her to do something she'd regret for the rest of her life. Just then, Sun Hwa's husband returned from a trip, even saying he had intentionally brought back local specialties for Andong. "Thank you for always taking care of my son Hwa." Those three words, "my son Hwa," caused the seed of resentment in Andong's heart to grow. She said to Sun Hwa's husband, "Do you really think that child is yours?" Sun Hwa's husband listened as Andong added fuel to the fire. "Do you know about her past? No wonder you have time for such long trips. It's normal she wouldn't tell you." These incendiary remarks led to a fierce argument between Sun Hwa, who was still in postpartum recovery, and her husband. Although drunk, Andong retained a shred of rationality. She cursed herself for running her mouth. Even though she was so drunk she could barely stand, she still wanted to go to Sun Hwa's house to explain. But seeing Sun Hwa's husband drive away, she knew it was too late. Unexpectedly, Sun Hwa, still recovering from childbirth, suddenly ran outside to chase after her husband. Just then, a taxi sped out from a turn, and so, Sun Hwa was hit by the car. Andong sobered up instantly. At that moment, she wanted to die then and there. But if she died, there would be no one left to take care of the baby. So, she couldn't die yet. She vowed to raise this child to be a good person. Watching the child grow up to look more and more like Sun Hwa's husband, her guilt intensified daily. Therefore, she wanted to meet the child's father one last time. Walju, upon hearing this, was furious and immediately threw Mrs. Andong out. This kind of person didn't deserve help. But wanting to help Mrs. Andong, Kang Bi, when no one was looking, secretly stole Guai's dream-entering wine. However, he didn't know this wine came with a catch. When he got the wine and went to find Mrs. Andong, he found her lying on the floor. He immediately rushed her to the hospital. Her daughter learned that her mother had cancer and was inconsolable. She hadn't known her mother had hidden it from her for so long. At that moment, the phone in Kang Bi's pocket suddenly rang. He took out his phone, forgetting about the bottle of dream-entering wine. Meanwhile, Walju's group discovered that Kang Bi had stolen the dream-entering wine and warned him not to touch it or drink it. Kang Bi repeatedly apologized. Over on the other side, Andong's daughter, Yoon-soo, had cried so much she was dehydrated and picked up the water bottle on the table. She didn't care who had drunk from it before and immediately tilted her head back and drank. When Kang Bi returned to the room, he saw the empty bottle knocked over on the sofa. Kang Bi, panicked, was about to try and wake her, but he forgot about his unique constitution and was instantly sucked in. Once inside, he was utterly terrified. It was pitch black all around, and there were stairs. He was so scared he desperately cried for help. Upon arriving and seeing the scene in the room, Ju immediately knew the two of them had entered a dream. As Kang Bi was desperately calling for help, Ju struck him hard, scolding him that he deserved it. Then, she flipped the light switch. They were in a movie theater. Ju reminded Kang Bi that the dreamscape had to be designed by her first before they were allowed to enter. If they were careless, they could get trapped in the subconscious, never able to escape. Suddenly, images of what Yun-Soo was currently thinking appeared on the screen. They were all scenes of her mother protecting her. Eventually, she even used all the money she had saved up as a dowry for her daughter. But Ju believed this wasn't motherly love, but Andong's way of atoning for her sins. Kang Bi begged Ju to help Andong fulfill her dying wish, but Ju adamantly refused to help such people. Because 500 years ago, if it weren't for her neighbors spreading rumors that she was a witch who had seduced the crown prince, she wouldn't have been driven to hang herself on the sacred tree. Therefore, she deeply hated those who spread rumors and destroyed others' family happiness. But Kang Bi couldn't bear to see Andong die with regrets. So, he agreed to help Ju complete her mission, hoping she would, in turn, help him fulfill Andong's wish. Meanwhile, Andong had just passed away, and a Reaper had come to take her soul, but Ju pulled Andong behind her. The Reaper asked what she thought she was doing. Ju simply sweet-talked him, hoping the Reaper would grant her a 2-day reprieve. Once Andong's wish was fulfilled, she would hand her over. Fortunately, the Reaper was on good terms with Ju. Very quickly, they found Yun-Soo's father. When Yun-Soo was shown the picture, she learned that her current mother was her adoptive mother, and that her birth mother's death had been indirectly caused by her adoptive mother. But she didn't hate Andong at all. Instead, she thanked her for raising her. At this, the burden in Andong's heart was finally lifted, and after helping Andong fulfill her wish as promised, Kang Bi signed the contract, officially becoming an employee there. Soon after, their first customer arrived. Ju told him to try his best. Seeing the customer's distressed appearance, Ju signaled that it was time for Kang Bi to get to work. Kang Bi, while serving a dish, pretended to comfort the customer. A light touch from Kang Bi sent a jolt through the customer's mind. And so, the customer honestly poured out all his pent-up frustrations. This fellow, Bong Yi, despite being dirt poor and worrying daily about basic necessities, had managed to get a girlfriend. When his girlfriend wanted to go into a restaurant, upon seeing the prices, Bong Yi would immediately feign a stomachache, saying he'd rather go home and have some plain noodles. But halfway there, a hotel employee handing out flyers would say, "It's getting dark, the roads are slippery. Care to stay the night?" But Bong Yi would immediately refuse, saying, "My place is just nearby." The flyer guy would glance at Bong Yi's girlfriend and say, "Your girlfriend looks tired." She would immediately chime in that she was very tired and couldn't walk any further. "If you're tired, you should have said so sooner. Let's hurry home. I'll take you, okay?" Then he'd pull his girlfriend away. The salesperson would watch them go and sigh, perhaps thinking, how can the poor understand love? But it wasn't that Bong Yi didn't understand romance. His wallet simply didn't allow for it. He also tried very hard to pass the civil service exam, but he always ranked last. But being a graduate student, he couldn't for the life of him understand what was going wrong. Ju told him, "Drink this, and I'll tell you the answer." A second later, Bong Yi fell fast asleep and entered his own dreamscape. He angrily demanded to know why he wasn't chosen, only to be restrained by a female guard standing nearby. Someone in the dream might have retorted, "Don't you even know your place?" Ju then realized that all those selected were chosen through nepotism. She despised people like that who looked down on others. Meanwhile, the female guard assigned to the chairman suggested to her superior that she be reassigned to protect someone else. She didn't want to protect scum like him. Her superior retorted, "You've only been here for 2 months. What right do you have to negotiate terms with me?" Little did they know, this guard possessed extraordinary abilities, even making the Grim Reaper take special notice of her. To expose the injustice in the hiring process, they found information on company employees in the manager's office. But their cover was blown too quickly. Before they could even leave, they were surrounded by a group of security guards. Seeing this, Supervisor Guai hurriedly broke through the encirclement to escape. But as the security guard, Yo-rin, was about to give chase, she spotted Kang Bi hiding behind a door and immediately forced him out. Yo-rin demanded he hand over whatever he had. Kang Bi grabbed her baton and pulled hard, causing her to lose her balance and fall on top of him. Kang Bi patted her shoulder and said, "If something's troubling you, just let it all out. I'm here to listen." Yo-rin asked Kang Bi, "Hey, what are you talking about?" Kang Bi replied, "It's alright, I'm listening." Yo-rin just thought this guy was a bit off, so she immediately spun around, pinned him to the ground, and then frisked him all over. Right after, she discovered a USB drive in Kang Bi's pants pocket. Kang Bi explained it was evidence of the chairman's fraudulent hiring practices. "I'm just exposing wrongdoing," he said. "To put it plainly, I'm doing a good thing." And these words struck a chord with Yo-rin. It wasn't as if she didn't know the chairman was a scumbag. So, she returned the USB drive to Kang Bi, told him to take the stairwell, and then to swipe her ID badge to get out. But the biggest taboo for a security guard is showing leniency. Very quickly, everything came to light. This also meant that all the senior managers would soon have to pack their bags and leave the company. And Bong Yi received an official notification that he had been hired. But Yo-rin wasn't so lucky. She was fired by the head of security. Inwardly, she cursed Kang Bi, calling him a jerk and hoping she'd never lay eyes on him again. Little did she know, when she started her next job, she would run into Kang Bi, the very man who had cost her her previous one. Encountering such an unruly customer in the supermarket was just terrible luck. Kang Bi apologized repeatedly but still had to follow procedure, asking the customer to present a receipt so he could process the issue. But the man, feigning offense, asked Kang Bi, "Hey, do I look like I'm lying to you?" Seeing Kang Bi standing there dumbfounded, unsure what to do, the customer took off his jacket, revealing a body covered in tattoos. At this sight, Kang Bi was genuinely terrified. The man raised his hand, about to strike Kang Bi, when a fair arm intercepted the blow. Kang Bi slowly looked up. "Her? What's going on?" The customer tried to continue the assault, but Yo-rin effortlessly subdued him. Kang Bi thought to himself, "Good thing I didn't piss her off last night." Just then, the employee who had gone to check the security footage rushed back, explaining that this particular item was only sold online. Plainly put, the man was trying to use his tattoos to intimidate them into a fraudulent exchange. Hearing this, the customer hastily departed. Kang Bi had just breathed a sigh of relief when Yo-rin eyed him suspiciously, saying she didn't think he worked there. She then tried to drag him off for verification, but Walju intervened. Walju said she was there to clear up the misunderstanding between the two. Then, they brought in a foreigner. As soon as he walked in, he harshly berated Walju. "Don't you realize how serious it is to have your identities exposed?" Walju feigned helplessness, saying, "I had no other choice. They're suspicious of who I am." Yo-rin scrutinized the foreign man. She couldn't shake the feeling that he looked incredibly familiar. At this point, Walju produced some pre-prepared information. He was, supposedly, the head of the US Central Intelligence Agency CIA. This time, Yo-rin no longer doubted them. Once Yo-rin had left, Kang Bi began to greet the foreign man. The man told Kang Bi not to worry, that everything was resolved. Walju, however, wore a clear look of disdain for Kang Bi's gullibility. Then, the foreign man began to shake his head. After a moment of shaking, he reverted to his original form, a bottle. Only then did Kang Bi realize it had all been an act. One evening after work, Kang Bi coincidentally saw Yo-rin walking ahead of him. As he walked, he mused, for over 20 years of his life, merely touching someone would cause them to reveal their innermost thoughts and feelings. But last night, he and Yo-rin had made contact. Why hadn't she shown any symptoms whatsoever? What on earth was happening? He genuinely wanted to touch her one more time, but just at that moment, Yo-rin appeared right in front of him, startling him so much that he recoiled. Yo-rin said, "You Central Intelligence Agency guys are way too obvious when you're tailing someone." Kang Bi hastily explained, "My home is this way too." As he continued walking, he thought about how startled he'd been earlier. It seemed he might have brushed against her then. But by the next day, the bar owner announced that registrations were open for the annual couples dance competition. The winning pair would not only receive an enormous cash prize, but also a 2-rank promotion. Hearing this, Yo-rin, who had just started working there, felt a surge of interest. But who could possibly be her dance partner? She scanned her surroundings and her gaze fell upon Kang Bi. But then she thought to herself that Kang Bi definitely couldn't dance. Meanwhile, Kang Bi also wanted to seize this opportunity to become a permanent employee. So, he looked towards Yo-rin, because she was the only one he could touch without consequence. He immediately went to find Yo-rin and, upon meeting her, got straight to the point. "Do you think we could team up for the competition?" But Yo-rin replied that he was a CIA agent. Being around him put too much pressure on her and made her feel uncomfortable. Kang Bi silently cursed Gwai in his heart. The man hadn't even consulted him before telling such a lie. Therefore, he had no choice but to tell Yo-rin the truth. "To me, you are a very special person." At this, Yo-rin seemed a little touched. Who would have thought that Kang Bi would then continue? "Because you're the only person I can touch who doesn't have any reaction." Yo-rin immediately flew into a rage, using her formidable martial arts skills to warn Kang Bi not to mess with her. But as fate would have it, when he went out to eat, he ran into Yo-rin again. Just then, a blind man with a guide dog entered the restaurant. The woman at a nearby table immediately started complaining loudly, claiming she had ingested dog hair. The blind man hurriedly apologized and stood up, preparing to leave. Kang Bi quickly interjected, explaining that guide dogs were permitted in restaurants. Yet, that woman kept on ranting. Yo-rin couldn't stand it anymore and angrily berated the woman, saying she was worse than the dog. "The dog actually helps guide people. What do? Do you even act like a human being?" The woman was so thoroughly chided by Yo-rin that she didn't dare utter another word. Kang Bi had finally found a teammate. He joyfully ran to tell Wal-ju, who had just opened the door. He was taken aback to find himself in a completely different area. Kang Bi thought he had run to the wrong place, so he opened the door, stepped outside, and reconfirmed that he was indeed looking at the correct sign. Outside was still the same bustling, crowded commercial street, but when he stepped back inside, it was still an outdoor scene. Just then, Wal-ju called Kang Bi over. He asked in astonishment, "What's going on?" Manager Nu explained that today was the annual Dream Realm Lottery Battle, which, to put it bluntly, was a sports festival for spirits. The winner would be able to send their descendants a dream revealing winning lottery numbers. Meanwhile, the contestants on their side were confidently preparing for the event. An old man sat lamenting. "My family has been poor for 5 consecutive generations. This time, I absolutely must help my descendants." Just then, as Kang Bi was bringing over some food, he heard the old man declare with utmost confidence, "Great-grandson Jyn Dong, get ready to become a millionaire." Kang Bi suddenly realized wasn't Jyn Dong his colleague from the supermarket. He glanced at the old man's name tag and saw the surname Choi. His colleague was also a Choi. So, he curiously asked the old man, "Sir, are you Choi Jyn Dong's ancestor?" The old man asked back in surprise, "How do you know my grandson?" Kang Bi immediately explained, "Jyn Dong and I are colleagues." The old man, extremely moved, stood up and greeted Kang Bi as if he were meeting a long-lost relative. But then, a thought struck him. Oh dear, to pass away so young. Kang Bi didn't quite know how to explain the situation, so he simply said, "Life is unpredictable, isn't it?" Very quickly, the organizer, the underworld emissary, began to announce the opening. Fan Chu read the first question. "Do snails have teeth?" While everyone was looking at each other in bewilderment, old man Choi began to analyze. Snails eat grass. How could they gnaw without teeth? And so, he was the first to give the answer yes. Afterwards, Fan Chu announced that old man Choi's answer was correct. After eliminating a large group, the most crucial part of the competition arrived. Knowing that the contestants were all elderly spirits whose bodies were no longer flexible, they intentionally tested whether everyone normally engaged in physical training. Clearly, all the participants failed. When it was old man Choi's turn, he declared the slogan, "Men don't need to be flexible." Having said that, he gently arched his body backward, taking deliberate, zombie-like steps, and successfully passed under the bar. Very quickly, the emissary proceeded to reward him. It just goes to show that even when you're old, You should still try to maintain your health. You never know when it might come in handy. Kang Bi mused that perhaps after Jyn Dong won the prize, he would immediately quit his job. Right after that, the old man sent a dream to his grandson. He presented a sequence of numbers. The last 2 numbers, in red, he had even intentionally written on the palm of his hand. Jyn Dong told Kang Bi, "My ancestor appeared to me, said I'm about to get rich, and told me to remember this sequence of numbers very carefully." The emissary also sent all the spirits who had participated in the competition off for reincarnation. The group of souls under his management decreased by another batch. His assistant showed him the list of people scheduled to die the next day. After looking at it, he was stunned and hastily urged Old Man Choi to proceed with reincarnation. Curious, Yo Rin or She, if a specific character isn't named here, though it's likely Yo Rin noticed the underworld emissary's logbook had now been upgraded to an iPad. So she picked it up and saw Jyn Dong's death time counting down. She asked curiously, "Is Jyn Dong going to die tomorrow?" Hearing this, Old Man Choi exclaimed in alarm, "How can Jyn Dong die?" He hurriedly begged the underworld emissary to show mercy. The underworld emissary said he couldn't decide this matter himself. This was a task assigned by his superiors. Old Man Choi continuously begged the emissary to think of a solution. The emissary thought for a moment and then said, "It's not that there's no way to save him. Everyone, huddle in close and listen to what I have to say." Meanwhile, Jyn Dong, who never bought lottery tickets, suddenly and excitedly pulled one out today. Seeing this, Kang Bi knew the inevitable was coming and feared there was no escaping it. Jyn Dong secretly told Kang Bi that his ancestor had visited him in a dream last night, saying these numbers were a sure win. Kang Bi outwardly appeared joyful, but inwardly, he was extremely worried. Seeing Jyn Dong about to climb a ladder, he immediately ran over to help Jyn Dong with his items, then began to eliminate all potential dangers around him. There was a watermelon rind on the ground, which he also quickly kicked aside to prevent any unforeseen accidents. This action startled Yo Rin. Kang Bi explained that he was doing a full-body workout. Only 10 minutes remained until Jyn Dong's time of death, and the emissary was preparing to collect him. With things having reached this point, there was nothing more the emissary could do. He had already taught them the method. Whether they could succeed now depended entirely on them. Kang Bi, already knowing Jyn Dong's time of death, urged him, "Go home, it's too dangerous here." But Jyn Dong paid no attention at all. "Dangerous, my foot. This isn't the first day I've done this kind of work." But unexpectedly, a second later, a cargo cart suddenly began to move on its own, then hurtled straight towards Jyn Dong. It turned out the emissary was using magic. Seeing the cart rapidly approaching, Kang Bi immediately spotted the cart and frantically pulled Jyn Dong aside. Ju also immediately counter-attacked the emissary. But seeing Jyn Dong lying motionless, Kang Bi was terrified. He immediately propped Jyn Dong up and vigorously shook his head. Kang Bi's attempt to rouse him by shaking his head had no effect, but his special ability suddenly sent an electric jolt through Jyn Dong's head. Then, Jyn Dong uncontrollably blurted out his hidden innermost feelings. Only then did Kang Bi realize his hand had touched Jyn Dong. Meanwhile, Ju was pleading with the emissary to wait a moment, but the emissary refused, saying he had gone through great difficulty to get this job. If he got fired, he'd have to eat dirt. Ju was extremely anxious because Chief Guai or Department Head Guai still hadn't arrived. At that very moment, Fan Cha Guai was also rushing back with all his might. Seeing that the time to reap Jyn Dong's soul had arrived, the Reaper immediately changed Jyn Dong's cause of death to a myocardial infarction. But just as he was about to use his powers on Jyn Dong, something unexpected happened. His magic no longer worked. The Reaper frantically shook his hands, preparing to try again. The young woman who protected Yo Rin approached. Kang Bi quickly pulled Jyn Dong into a secluded corner. As Chin the Protector walked out, she passed right through the Reaper's body. Phasing through him caused no physical harm, but the problem was, as she passed, the Reaper suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. He still had no idea that this Chin girl was no ordinary human, and that she would later play a very significant role. Seeing Chin exit, Ju stepped forward to confront the Reaper. Just as the Reaper was about to unleash his full power in an attack, Fan Cha Guai appeared in the nick of time. He took out a small pouch of merits and handed it to the Reaper. This tiny merit pouch was enough to save Jyn Dong's life. After returning home, Jyn Dong eagerly checked the lottery results for that day. The results showed he hadn't won a single prize. He lamented that, indeed, dreams couldn't be trusted. He should just dutifully go back to work at the supermarket. But working at the supermarket wasn't easy either. A man was surreptitiously taking items from the shelves and putting them into his bag. Coincidentally, Yo-rin witnessed this act. Strangely, when she checked the man's bag, it was completely empty. There was nothing inside. Yo-rin was bewildered. She was sure she had seen him put items in the bag. Was she hallucinating? She decided to take a closer look inside the bag. Jyn quickly bowed her head to apologize to the customer. But the customer said a bowed apology wouldn't suffice. He insisted that Yo-rin, the accuser, had to kneel and apologize before he would calm down. Left with no other choice, Yo-rin was about to comply, but Kang Bi stopped her. Kang Bi asked the man if he was lying. The customer angrily retorted, "What, are your eyes busted too?" Suddenly, Kang Bi grabbed the man's hand, and just a second later, the man's entire demeanor changed. Kang Bi, confirming the man's earlier denial after using his touch-based power, said, "Indeed, there's nothing in the bag." At that moment, the customer suddenly blurted out, "We're professionals. We always work in teams. One person is in charge of the stealing, and another is responsible for carrying the goods away." Kang Bi curiously asked, "So, where's your accomplice?" The man immediately spun around 90 degrees and asked his accomplice if he had hidden the alcohol yet. The other thief couldn't believe he'd been double-crossed by his own partner. After that incident, Yo-rin and Kang Bi officially formed a team and registered for a talent show. But Kang Bi had never danced before. After practicing for just a short while, he got a headache from how incredibly difficult dancing was. Later, following the instructor's cues, the two began practicing together. From the outside, they appeared to be perfectly synchronized, but in reality, Kang Bi's footwork was an utter mess. It was as if Yo-rin was dragging him along. By the end, his heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would leap out of his chest. Kang Bi quickly explained that it was because he wasn't usually very active. Hearing this, the instructor told Kang Bi to stay behind. She would help him practice. But staying behind this time led to an awkward situation elsewhere. Scene change. A woman named Soo Jong lifted her shirt and injected herself in the abdomen with a syringe. Her husband, standing beside her, watched with a heartbroken expression. That night, as he gently touched his wife's stomach, covered in injection bruises, he silently made a firm resolution. The next day when Soo Jong woke up, her stomach still felt awful, but she was determined to go out. Her husband told her, "Don't push yourself, just try to relax. I'm taking you shopping today. It would really put a damper on things if you didn't come." Even so, her husband remained deeply devoted and concerned. After she was fully awake, he told her to give up on the treatments. He took her hand and said, "Let's just let nature take its course. Look at you, you've been injecting your stomach for 2 whole years, not even caring about your quality of life. It's not worth it. I don't want children anymore. Right now, just living our lives together, the two of us, is enough." Hearing her husband say this, Soo Jong felt a great sense of relief. But when the two of them returned to their normal lives and met her husband's close friend, seeing that he had both sons and daughters filled her with immense admiration, especially since her husband absolutely adored children. Seeing how much her husband loved children, she felt even more insecure. That evening, when her husband wanted to be intimate, she turned him down. After all, since they couldn't have children, what was the point? Soo Jong told her husband she felt terribly guilty for not being able to make him a father. But her husband asked what law stipulated that being unable to conceive was a crime. Did life lose all meaning without children? Did their love cease to exist? Although she knew her husband loved her, she truly hoped for the laughter of children in their home. Unexpectedly, Soo Jong, the usually incredibly confident and strong dance instructor, lost her footing for a moment and accidentally bumped into Kang Bi. It was then that she poured out all her feelings, but bearing her soul wasn't something shameful. On the contrary, it made Walju determined to help her. Walju told Soo Jong to visit her eatery if she had time, saying perhaps she could do something to help. Afterward, the three of them sprang into action. They went to the place where the midwife was up to no good. To their surprise, the midwife, even in her sleep, could still unleash a biological bomb. The pervasive odor spread everywhere, causing the three onlookers to nearly pass out. This place was clearly uninhabitable. They just had to get outside for some fresh air first. But Kang Bi suddenly spotted a claw machine nearby. Walju took a look. Weren't these dream conception orbs? So, she started operating the claw machine, but every time she got to the crucial moment, the orb would drop. She tried several times in a row, failing to grab one each time. Good heavens, her skill level was no different from me trying to win stuffed animals at the supermarket. Kang Bi reminded her that the midwife was about to wake up. Walju, furious, kicked the dream conception orb machine. A dream conception orb automatically fell out. She immediately grabbed 3 and put them in her bag. But they didn't realize they had dropped a business card right at the scene. Hearing the alarm bell, the midwife rushed over. She thought the machine was broken, but when she saw the business card on the ground, she knew that troublemaker Walju was causing trouble again. Next, Walju and Soo-jong drank some wine that Walju had brewed herself, claiming that drinking it would make wishes come true. Although Soo-jong was skeptical, she drank it. Then, the 3 of them sat ready in the dream realm, waiting for Soo-jong. Seeing Soo-jong approaching, they threw out a dream conception orb. The orb immediately transformed into a lotus flower. If she picked up the lotus, it meant she was about to have a baby. But strangely, no matter how Soo-jong reached, she couldn't touch the lotus. Seeing this, the 3 immediately decided to throw out the second orb. But this time, the orb turned into a tiger. Walju signaled for the tiger to enter. Soo-jong implied into her warm dream for a son, but the tiger remained still, unmoving. Inspector Gwai Fan Cha Gwai mentioned that many people were conceiving baby boys during this period, so perhaps the tiger was tired. But just then, the midwife arrived, so they sped things up and threw out the third orb. They went directly to another dreamscape, a celestial peach representing twins, a boy and a girl. Seeing this, Kang Bi urged them to catch it quickly. Walju tossed the peach up, but at that exact moment, the midwife arrived and caught the peach. Walju, not holding back, grabbed the midwife's head and snatched the peach away. After Than Kai Hai, likely Than Cha Gwai, got the peach, he threw it using a basketball shooting stance. Sure enough, Soo-jong successfully caught it. Finally, the 3 of them completed their mission of bestowing a child. But they didn't know that this act had violated heavenly rules. They were about to face a severe punishment. Humans never realize that even doing good deeds can violate heavenly rules. The messenger relayed the King of Hell's order: immediately confiscate the 5-year-old mobile tavern and demand that Walju's group face punishment at once. As for Kang Bi, being a human unaware of the rules, he was considered innocent. The mobile tavern owner, who would appear every night, was now not even a shadow to be seen. At this moment, Walju and Gwai were at the King of Hell's place, atoning for their sins. But the King of Hell was no pushover. Wrongdoing must be punished, no negotiations. The 2 couldn't say anything and could only silently accept their guilt. And their punishment was to perform 120 days of community service in the underworld, arranging the next placements for souls preparing to be reincarnated. The judge, seeing they were all righteous souls, allowed them to choose their own places of reincarnation. However, they said anything would do, as a pure soul would be the same no matter where it was reincarnated. Inspector Hai suggested that, seeing how well they all got along, perhaps they should reincarnate as a boy band in their next life. With everyone very pleased, the judge banged his gavel, confirming their next lives. Next, they went to Granny Samson's Well of Oblivion to have their past life memories erased. Now that there was a machine for the cleansing, Granny Samson had also become unemployed. But Walju didn't know that this place of Granny Samson's would give her a chance to turn things around for herself. Walju and Inspector Hai's disappearance left Kang Bi extremely sad. For several days, as soon as he finished work, he would rush to where the pop-up bar used to be, only to return disappointed each time. He truly missed them both terribly at this point. But who knew that life has its ups and downs? King Yumra, ruler of the underworld, would soon have no choice but to seek help from Walju and Inspector Hai. That day, King Yumra suddenly received a message from the Jade Emperor, stating that evil spirits had recently been escaping the underworld and demanding she promptly send her subordinates to recapture them. So, she immediately replied to her superior, assuring him that she would assign her subordinates to work overtime and that the Jade Emperor could rest assured. But as soon as she sent the message, she began to complain. Does he think my only job is to catch evil spirits? Seriously, he never gives the staff a raise, just criticizes all day long. It's truly unbearable. Just then, King Yumra's phone buzzed with another message. It turned out to be from a close friend checking in on her. So, King Yumra, pouting, began to vent all her pent-up frustrations, typing about how the detestable Jade Emperor had just been hounding her about work. Right at that moment, she bumped into someone. The other person hastily picked up the phone which had dropped and apologized to her. Faced with such a sincere apology, King Yumra could only offer an awkward smile and let it pass. So, she resumed typing out her earlier complaints. When she hit send, she realized she had just sent it to the Jade Emperor. This was big trouble. She tried to console herself and calm down, preparing to explain that she was just writing a story. But, as luck would have it, her phone died right at that moment. Panicked, she rushed to the reception desk looking for a charger. Unfortunately, the receptionist was nowhere to be found. She immediately started rummaging everywhere for a charger. Finding an outlet, she didn't care what was plugged into it, and just yanked the cord out to charge her phone first. Little did she know, what she had just unplugged was the power to Granny Samson's Well of Oblivion. At that exact moment, a man named Boxu was inside the well, waiting for his memories to be cleansed. When the Well of Oblivion showed no reaction, he stepped out, wondering if going inside was merely a formality. The attendant asked if Boxu was finished, and he nodded. But what gave King Yumra the biggest headache now was that Boxu, the man whose memories hadn't been erased, was proceeding to his reincarnation. Therefore, she asked Walju and Inspector Gui Hai's other name title to bring him back, make him go through the Well of Oblivion properly, and then send him on his way. Inspector Gui wondered why she didn't just report it to the underworld police and have them bring him back. King Yumra exclaimed in panic that if the Jade Emperor found out about this, she'd be dead for sure. But it seemed King Yumra realized she had just let something slip. This time, Walju had leverage for negotiation. Haha. The pop-up bar? It's yours again, King Yumra offered. Then Walju turned to Inspector Gui. You're on good terms with the Jade Emperor, right? A subtle threat towards Yumra. King Yumra quickly interjected. Your punishments are cancelled, both of yours. All right then, Walju replied to Yumra. We'll go handle this for you right away. Now, Boxu, in his past life, hadn't exactly been a virtuous person, so the Council of Judges deliberated on what he should be reincarnated as. Swiftly, the judge presented the analysis. In his past life, Boxu was gluttonous, lazy, and had a particular fondness for fried chicken. Thus, he was sentenced to be reincarnated as a chicken. Boxu was furious, but fortunately, he was to reincarnate with his past life memories intact. Boxu made his way to a chicken nest, following directions to the specific egg he was to enter, and then gazed upon the chickens destined to be his new family. He began to look up to the sky and curse the Jade Emperor endlessly. Just as Boxu was about to get a good look at his own form, the owner of the chicken coop walked in. Then, the man walked right through him. He was about to gather eggs for a meal when he slipped, fell, and passed out. Boxu thought the man was dead, so he reached out to check his nose still breathing. He couldn't even handle a fall like that, Boxu suddenly thought. Isn't this a golden opportunity? Being an old man is definitely better than being a chicken. So, Boxu decided to go all in. He slipped right into the old man's body. Next thing he knew, he opened his eyes and found himself in the old man's house. Suddenly, a housekeeper approached and said, "Dinner is served, Mr. Chairman." The words "Mr. Chairman" made his jaw drop in surprise. He couldn't believe his luck. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Kang Bi suddenly heard a very familiar voice. It was Walju, complaining about where that kid Boxu could have run off to. At that moment, Kang Bi, as excited as a child, immediately ran up and hugged them, saying that he'd willingly help with anything they needed him to do. Seeing Kang Bi's sincerity, the two of them took him to the chicken coop where Boxu was supposed to have reincarnated. Inspector Gui told Kang Bi to use his special ability to see what these chickens knew. Suddenly, the chickens began to pour out their hearts. Next, Inspector Gui put the chicken language he'd recently learned to use and started conversing with the flock. They had a very animated discussion. Inspector Guai then explained, furious, that during his chat with the chickens, he learned that Boxu had possessed the chairman and, worse, still had his past life memories. They were now on the mission assigned by King Yumra, to bring the person back and erase his memories. The fake chairman, sitting in his car, was reminiscing about his past life when his secretary suddenly handed him a contract to sign. But as soon as he opened it, he saw it was entirely in English. His education had only gone up to elementary school. He'd never managed to pass an English class. He couldn't understand a word of it and could only tell the secretary he'd sign it later. He thought to himself, being a chairman is exhausting. Afterwards, Boxu as the chairman had the driver take him to a fruit stand and ordered his underlings to trash the place. Seeing the stand destroyed, fruit scattered everywhere, and then looking at the owner sitting on the ground, Boxu felt a great sense of satisfaction. Back when he was alive, this fruit stand owner had been Boxu's best friend. At that time, Boxu had lost money gambling and, needing to pay off loan sharks, had gone to his friend to borrow money. But Boxu's friend had given him a harsh scolding, telling him that if he stopped gambling all the time, no one would be chasing him down. Just then, Boxu's friend's phone rang. Noticing his friend speaking softly and extremely cautiously, Boxu stepped outside to see what was going on. Sure enough, he saw the group of loan sharks approaching. Boxu cursed his friend, calling him a traitor, and then ran off. But at that exact moment, a car sped out of nowhere and hit Boxu, killing him instantly. Coincidentally, the chairman Boxu had possessed was the president of the supermarket where Kang Bi worked. Kang Bi saw his chance. Should he touch the fake chairman? Just then, his manager asked if the winner of this year's company competition would still be granted one wish, as in previous years. The fake chairman, hearing this, was inwardly panicking but tried to feign composure, saying, "Of course, everything remains the same." Next, Kang Bi relayed this news to Wal Ju. If he won first place, he could invite the chairman to their place, the pop-up bar, and use their mysterious wine to force Boxu out. It wasn't a bad idea, but Kang Bi's dancing skills were atrocious. What he had to do now was practice dancing with all his might. So, Kang Bi threw himself into practicing his dancing. Yo Rin, seeing this, mistakenly thought he was trying so hard for her. Soon after, Kang Bi asked Yo Rin if she could come over to his place that night to practice dancing, which immediately made Yo Rin's heart flutter. Meanwhile, Wal Ju also set her plan in motion. First, she cut the drawstrings on one contestant's pants. Then, she spread glue on the soles of another's shoes, and finally, she sprinkled some fish sauce on a shirt. Just sniffing it made her feel nauseous. The day of the competition arrived quickly. One couple was dancing joyfully when the male dancer was pulled down by his partner. He was so embarrassed he immediately left the stage. The next pair also failed. Even the fish sauce on the shirt trick worked its magic. His partner, overwhelmed by the stench, quickly fled. Next up was the final pair, Kang Bi and his partner. For the past 2 days, they had practiced diligently, and importantly, they hadn't been sabotaged. Thunderous applause erupted, proving just how outstanding they truly were. In the end, Kang Bi's team emerged victorious. Although their victory wasn't exactly honorable, they were thrilled. Not only did the win come with a hefty cash prize, but more importantly, it allowed them to make the fake chairman agree to one of their conditions. Jyn said she just wanted to become a permanent employee, a request the fake chairman readily and naturally agreed to. As for Kang Bi, he had already figured out his condition. He hoped the chairman would come to his house for a drink. Hearing the offer of alcohol, this fake chairman couldn't have been more pleased. So, Kang Bi gave Wal Ju a knowing look, signaling that everything was prepared. All they needed was that one drink. That evening, the fake chairman arrived at Kang Bi's house as planned. Unexpectedly, this chairman made himself right at home, commenting that the meat was delicious and would be to die for, with a bit more sauce. Seeing the opportune moment, Wal Ju signaled Kang Bi to proceed. Kang Bi immediately poured the chairman a drink. But this wasn't just any ordinary liquor. Then, Wal Ju herself offered the chairman the drink. No sooner had he finished it than he fell fast asleep. Little did he know, he was now in the dream realm. There, seeing money on the ground, Boxu, his dream self, presumably immediately crouched down and sneakily began to pick it up. Strangely, he kept finding money along his path. Walju was using the money to lure Boxu to a specific place. But suddenly, Boxu heard someone mention his name. Curious, he poked his head in to see what was going on. It turned out to be a group of loan sharks. They were saying that punk Boxu was a good-for-nothing, but he had a close friend, a fruit shop owner, who even paid off his debts for him. What a dimwit, they scoffed, referring to Boxu's irresponsibility. Hearing this, Boxu couldn't believe his ears. He rushed to his friend's store, arriving just in time to see his friend's wife demanding a divorce. The reason? She was fed up with her husband repeatedly bailing out his gambling-addicted friend Boxu. Once or twice was understandable, she argued, but if it happened every single time, how were they supposed to make ends meet? Especially since they also had an ailing elderly mother to care for. She declared she had endured enough. Witnessing this, Boxu realized he had gravely misunderstood his friend. Just then, Walju appeared before him and asked, "Is this what you wanted to see?" From Boxu's expression, it was clear he knew he was wrong. It was then that Boxu finally realized this wasn't reality. Walju reminded him, "Though this isn't happening in the physical world, everything you've seen is true." Therefore, Walju told Boxu that it wasn't too late for him to return and accept his punishment. Being reincarnated as a chicken was far better than being condemned to the 18 levels of hell. And so, Boxu opened a nearby trash can and threw in all the money material wealth you can't take with you. He was ready to be reincarnated, just as the judge had decreed. Seeing only 3 names left on the display board, indicating they would soon complete their mission quota, they decided to go out and celebrate. But little did they know, a 5,000-year-old individual had just appeared. This would be a pivotal figure who would change their lives. Kang Bi took an advertising flyer. Looking at it, he realized it was a notice about a missing relative. This reminded him of his own childhood. He had grown up in an orphanage, occasionally overhearing the caretakers discuss how he was a strange child they wanted to place elsewhere quickly. But every time he was adopted, he was returned by his adoptive parents not long after. So, he helped Miss Hyun-ok distribute the flyers and also brought her to Kwoo's place, introducing the proprietress there as being very skilled at finding missing people. Walju looked at the flyer and asked Inspector Gwai to check if this person was in the underworld. But upon seeing the fried eggs on the table, Hyun-ok recognized them as her son's favorite dish. Back then, her son was only 5 when her husband died in a car accident. To support the family, she had to be both mother and father, all to provide a better life for her son. During the day, Hyun-ok worked as a waitress to make ends meet. But around this time, a former elementary and middle school classmate persistently expressed his feelings for her. She told him frankly that right then, she only wanted to spend more time with her son. But, as they say, you always want what you can't have. One evening, when Hyun-ok returned from work, she found her son wasn't home, and his dinner was untouched. Seeing this, she was terrified. In the blink of an eye, 17 years passed. She continued to search everywhere for her son, but found no leads. And even stranger, from that very day, Miss Hyun-ok's elementary school friend also vanished without a trace. Just then, Inspector Gwai received a call from the underworld. The narrator notes, "Pay attention to the messenger's eyes." Afterwards, the messenger also stealthily departed. Inspector Gwai, on the phone, learned that the missing child had not yet arrived in the underworld. This proved the boy was still in the mortal realm. The messenger rushed over to ask if Miss Hyun-ok's son had been found. Inspector Gwai said that luckily, he wasn't dead yet, and they had located the person who took him. After hearing this, the messenger left. But he hadn't gone far when a sinister expression crossed his face. When Walju's group arrived at the location, they found the door ajar. Upon entering, they saw a man collapsed on the floor. A closer inspection revealed he was dying. Hearing this, Walju quickly took out the dream-entering liquor. Inspector Gwai hastily tried to stop her, saying it was too dangerous. If the man died, the two of them might not be able to get out of his dream. But Walju insisted on entering the dream realm because it was their only lead. Gwai said he would go in with her. He also instructed Kang Bi to immediately shake them awake if he noticed anything unusual happening to the man. Next, Walju poured half a vial of the dream-entering liquor into the man's mouth, and they immediately entered his dream. They saw him carrying the child on his back to the entrance of an orphanage, then hastily fleeing. The two rushed forward to see which orphanage it was. But in reality, the man was now barely breathing. Despite this, Walju risked everything to see the orphanage's name. In a nail-biting moment, she pushed aside some vines and managed to read its name. Fortunately, they managed to get out just before the man died. But strangely, it seemed the man had been murdered by someone. Walju commented that the man deserved such a fate. Quickly, through the orphanage, they located Hyun-ok's son, who was now in the United States. Finding her son after 17 years of separation, Miss Hyun-ok couldn't hold back her tears. Witnessing this scene, Walju felt an even deeper pang of sorrow. She greatly admired Hyun-ok because, at least, she got to reunite with her son. Walju, on the other hand, didn't even know what her own child looked like. Because that year, she ended her life on the sacred tree, she never imagined that act would cost 2 lives. One was the life of the sacred tree, and the other, the life of the baby in her womb. Her resentment, channeled through a hairpin left by her mother, merged with the sacred tree, and the tree's resentment, in turn, merged with the soul of the fetus. Therefore, the baby was condemned to live in suffering for lifetime after lifetime, until the sacred tree's hatred finally dissipated. She only learned of this when she met King Yumra, the ruler of the underworld. King Yumra explained that this was precisely the law of karma and retribution. She was sent to the mortal realm to help 100,000 people resolve their regrets, a task that could save the child she had never met, and that child, the one in her womb, was none other than the crown princes. However, their love was not sanctioned and had to be clandestine. Soon, the queen discovered their affair and demanded that she leave the royal palace and stay away from her son. But on the very first day she returned to her hometown, there was a knock on her door. She opened it to find the crown prince. "No matter what happens, I will protect you," he declared. And just like that, Walju fell deeper in love. But not long after, her mother died inexplicably in a sea of flames. She rushed to see the local magistrate, knelt, and begged him to help convey a message to the crown prince. She desperately needed to see him. But the magistrate dismissed it, saying, "It's just one person who burned to death. There's no need to inform the crown prince, just bury her." Thus, in her overwhelming pain and despair, she saw death as her only recourse. Now, for her child's sake, she had been in the mortal realm helping nearly 10,000 people resolve their regrets. However, what was about to happen threatened to make her 500 years of effort all for naught. The other day, Shaman Ju approached a young woman and gravely told her she had a negative spiritual attachment. The worried young woman asked, "So, what should I do?" Shaman Ju replied, "I'll draw a talisman for you. And it's very cheap, only 50,000 won." Suddenly, someone asked the young woman, "Your aunt passed away not too long ago, right?" The astonished young woman nodded in agreement. Walju continued, "Your aunt is right beside you. She's telling you to use your brain and not be so easily fooled by others." The young woman, recognizing that this sounded exactly like her late aunt, immediately stood up and left. Shaman Ju, having a customer snatched away right when he was about to close the deal, was furious. In truth, he had once been a renowned shaman, but gradually, he lost the ability to even see ghosts. Now, with no source of income, he was about to have nothing to eat. Walju reached out, patted his head, and said, "It's quite simple. Your gate of spiritual vision has just been closed. It just needs to be reopened." Soon, she and Inspector Guai entered the shaman's dreamscape and located his gate of spiritual vision. But strangely, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't open the gate. Even when both of them pulled together, it wouldn't budge. This left Walju even more puzzled, wondering why this was the case. So, they hurried to the afterlife's queue and a department to ask why they couldn't open the gate of spiritual vision. A staff member explained that this was due to a policy recently enacted by the Jade Emperor. Moreover, gates of spiritual vision could no longer be arbitrarily opened or closed without a special directive. Inspector Guai remarked that, in that case, perhaps the shaman should just change professions. However, Walju was concerned about the gates of spiritual vision because she would eventually need to help Kang Bi close his own. Inspector Guai immediately realized the implication. The two of them then pleaded with the staff member, but no amount of begging was of any use. Meanwhile, Kang Bi, after gaining his yin-yang eyes, would occasionally see ghosts. He'd pretend to be calm and take exorcism salt from the cupboard, but before he could even prepare, a ghost would approach, causing him to sink to the floor in fear. At that point, the ghost would also realize he could look her in the eyes, but Kang Bi wouldn't dare to look at her anymore. Suddenly, the world around him would tremble, and he'd see a Reaper slowly collecting the ghost's soul. After dealing with the ghost, the Reaper would kindly extend a hand to help Kang Bi up. Kang Bi mentioned, "Walju will help me close my gate of spiritual vision once she completes her mission." But the Reaper offered him a chilling piece of advice. If a man doesn't look out for himself, heaven and earth will conspire to destroy him. Clearly, this statement began to plant seeds of doubt in Kang Bi's mind. But he didn't know that the Reaper was no longer the same Reaper as before. The last time Inspector Guai and Kang Bi went out, they were being tailed by a nefarious individual. Just as this person was about to advance, the Reaper intercepted him. A second later, the individual called the Reaper Dad. The Reaper said, "They've suffered too much because of you. Stop this now." The Reaper's son, his eyes welling with tears, asked, "Have you ever, truly, considered me your son?" At this point, the Reaper, as if compelled by some unseen force, specifically bought ginseng tea to bribe the old spiritual midwife, Granny Samson. As it turned out, she said that an unclosed gate of spiritual vision meant the yin energy was too strong. He needed to be near someone with strong yang energy. It had to be someone on par with the reincarnations of the cinnabar stone to the vinegar stone. Walju recalled how, 500 years ago, her mother had told her this was the vinegar stone. Back then, she thought the stone was beautiful, and in her mother's hand was a small fragment of cinnabar stone. This type of stone possessed strong yang energy. Not only could it ward off evil, but it was also a panacea capable of curing all illnesses. And this stone was cinnabar. Someone asked Granny Samson about the cinnabar stone reincarnating into two. She replied that the reincarnation of spiritual artifacts was a heavenly secret that could not be revealed. With that, she shooed Walju Gaju is likely a typo for Walju or a different character. I'll assume Walju based on context away. Inspector Guai said that even if they knew who the cinnabar stone's reincarnation was, they wouldn't have enough time to bring the two together. Therefore, continuing to stall meant deceiving Kang Bi. Coincidentally, Kang Bi overheard this very statement. "What do you mean you can't help me close my gate of spiritual vision?" Walju Gaju, again, assuming Walju told Kang Bi to calm down, but Kang Bi refused to listen. Since childhood, he had detested selfish people who exploited others. He never imagined that the person he trusted would be just like them. Kang Bi stormed out in anger, but not far away, the Reaper stood watching, as if enjoying a good show. A cunning smile suddenly appeared on his face. That young woman, Yo Rin, pretended to be passing by, then narrowed her eyes, seemingly examining something very seriously. Suddenly, someone behind her said, "Hey, Kang Bi went to the restroom, he's not standing there." But only Yo Rin knew that she was, indeed, paying more and more attention to him. At this moment, Kang Bi was being summoned by Granny Samson. She told Kang Bi, Walju had originally prepared herself to descend into hell. However, she eventually discovered that the child in her womb was condemned to suffer for lifetime after lifetime, all because of her actions. So, she made a deal with King Yumra to come to the mortal realm and help 100,000 people resolve their regrets so her child could escape a life of suffering. Hearing this, Kang Bi felt a pang of anguish. He hadn't known any of this. Granny Samson said that even Inspector Guai didn't know this secret, and she had come specifically to tell Kang Bi. Walju was a person who deeply valued relationships and righteousness. Then, she instructed him to take out a signed confession of a grave sin. Kang Bi didn't understand what this was about. It turned out that, in her desperation to find out who the cinnabar reincarnation was, Walju had agreed to sign a confession admitting to the crime of revealing a heavenly secret, all because she had promised to help Kang Bi close his gate of spiritual vision. The content of this confession stated that after helping 100,000 people resolve their regrets, she would voluntarily renounce her chance at reincarnation and be condemned to hell. At this, Kang Bi was utterly horrified and begged Granny Samson to nullify the confession. Powerless, Granny Samson said it couldn't be undone. So, Kang Bi immediately ran to Walju, saying, "I don't want to close my gate of spiritual vision anymore. I don't want you to go to hell." Walju knew that Granny Samson had spoken to Kang Bi. She told him, after helping just 2 more people, Once she completed her mission, closing his gate of spiritual vision would be as easy as flipping her hand. As for her being condemned to hell, she didn't care in the slightest. "Just don't tell Inspector Guai," she added. But Kang Bi still went to find Inspector Guai. On the way, Inspector Guai kept complaining about how much Walju had struggled over the past 500 years. Just as Kang Bi was wondering how to tell the inspector about Walju's situation, a woman suddenly cried out excitedly, "Your Highness, the Crown Prince!" Those words made both of them involuntarily turn their heads. And so, Kang Bi ended up returning to the bar alone. Kang Bi said that Inspector Guai had run into a friend on the way. Walju wondered what friends he could possibly have left in this world. Kang Bi said it was a woman, not as beautiful as her. But she didn't know that this woman, who wasn't as beautiful as her, was no ordinary person. Inspector Guai asked curiously, "How did you recognize me?" The woman calmly replied, "Because we're mother and son. How could I not recognize my own son?" But Inspector Guai's mother from his previous life was curious why he hadn't reincarnated. Guai explained that he had an unfulfilled promise from his past life, and he was now working to fulfill it. When Guai returned to the bar and was taking off his coat, Kang Bi suddenly saw Guai's necklace fall to the floor. Inspector Guai quickly went to pick up the necklace. Walju scoffed. "Why so tense? Was it a gift from that woman earlier? People buy rings these days, you know?" Meanwhile, his past life mother had followed Inspector Guai all the way to the bar. Seeing Walju in the bar, she was so surprised she broke out in a cold sweat. At the supermarket, Walju asked Kang Bi to open a water bottle for her. But when Kang Bi tried, he found the cap wouldn't budge. Yo Rin, standing nearby, frowned upon seeing this. Kang Bi strained so hard that veins bulged on his hand and his face turned bright red. Yo Rin, unable to watch any longer, took the bottle and effortlessly twisted it open. She opened it with just a slight twist. Seeing this, Kang Bi exclaimed how amazing Yo Rin was. Then, Walju began to grill Inspector Guai. "Are you sure you used super glue on that cap?" Inspector Guai looked at the bottle in complete surprise. He had poured an entire bottle of glue onto that cap. Walju continued, "That means Yo Rin is no ordinary person." Because Walju had learned from the deity of childbirth and fate Sanzanhalmoni, or a similar spiritual entity, that Yo Rin was the reincarnation of the Chusa stone from 500 years ago. This also meant that if she and Kang Bi got together, their yin and yang energies combining, Kang Bi's portal for spiritual sight would automatically close. To push their relationship forward, Walju and Inspector Guai looked up matchmaking tips online. Next, Inspector Guai tricked Kang Bi into fetching a pot from the highest shelf for him. Then, Walju had Yo Rin pretend to walk by, deliberately asking, "What are you two doing here?" But when she saw Kang Bi's cartoon-patterned underwear peeking out, Yo Rin almost burst out laughing. Inspector Guai's eyes nearly popped out of his head. And so, Yo Rin walked away. Walju was furious. Who knew this kid liked to wear such childish things? Kang Bi's issue still hadn't been resolved. Walju then encountered the one person she never wanted to see again in her entire life. Seeing the newly arrived customer, Walju immediately recalled the queen from 500 years ago. The queen was to thank for all her current suffering. Kang Bi, seeing a customer arrive, immediately greeted her warmly. But the woman replied, "We meet again." Walju asked Kang Bi curiously, "Do you know her?" Kang Bi explained, "She's a friend of Inspector Guai." The queen from her past life was now Jai Hai. She ordered a plate of tteokbokki, but Walju snapped, "We're not serving that today. Go somewhere else." Sensing the tense atmosphere, Kang Bi stepped in to mediate. He brought out a plate of tteokbokki, but Jai Hai said, "Do you have the royal court version?" "No? I figured you wouldn't." Jai Hai added, "If you don't have it, just say so. Why get so worked up?" Hearing this, Walju became even more enraged. She wanted to grab a soup ladle and smack her, but Kang Bi stopped her, saying, "She's Inspector Guai's friend." Walju retorted, "That's the face of my mother's murderer, and the mother of that man who betrayed me." At this, Jai Hai was about to say something more when their conversation was interrupted by the two who had just returned Inspector Guai and his mother. When Jai Hai recognized him as the spiritual emissary, both of them were taken aback. A second later, Inspector Guai promptly told Jai Hai to go somewhere else to talk. Jai Hai was curious. Could it be that Walju still didn't know he was the crown prince? Inspector Guai remained silent. Jai Hai continued. Then you should clear up the misunderstanding between her, the crown prince, and the royal family. But Inspector Guai said that was all in the past. He didn't want to bring it up again. Right now, he just wanted to fulfill his promise. As long as he could be by Walju's side to protect her, he felt truly happy. Having been Guai's mother in a past life, Jai Hai agreed to help them in this life, no matter what it took. Inspector Guai said what she needed to do now was to keep it a secret. After Walju helped the final two souls, she would be reincarnated. That way, his deepest wish would also be fulfilled. That day at the Pacha, a man seemed to have something on his mind. Inspector Guai signaled Kang Bi to touch the customer to find out what was troubling him. But Kang Bi made an excuse about a stomach ache and stepped out. After the customer left, Inspector Guai asked Kang Bi, "There are only 2 more people left. Why aren't you actively trying to help? Don't you want to help Walju?" Kang Bi said helplessly, "I'm doing this because I don't want Miss Walju to go to hell." Hearing this, Inspector Guai didn't understand. So, Kang Bi told Inspector Guai about the pledge signed with the deity of childbirth and fate. Upon hearing this, Inspector Guai flew into a rage, acting completely irrationally, while the emissary standing nearby let out a smug smile. Inspector Guai had never been so frantic. The deity of childbirth and fate said there was nothing she could do. The pledge had already been sent to King Yumra for judgment and was no longer in her possession. Hearing this, Inspector Guai asked her if she had any conscience. Because he understood Walju, she was just that stubbornly determined. Meanwhile, when the emissary learned that Walju was willingly choosing to go to hell, he couldn't let her achieve her goal so easily. He had to make Walju experience the agonizing pain of separation by life and death before she was cast into hell. That would be much more satisfying. Because the emissary was no longer the emissary he once was. Ever since he had reunited with his son who had escaped from hell, a moment of weakness had led him to fall into his son's trap. Taking advantage of his father's distraction, the son had sealed his father's soul and then possessed his body. Once he had the body of his father, an emissary of the underworld, he immediately went to find the crown prince to seek revenge and vent his fury. For 500 years, he had endured the burning fires of hell. But he hadn't expected Inspector Guai to go to King Yumra and accuse him of being shameless. Walju is about to finish atoning for her sins. Why are you forcing her to sign a pledge to go to hell? King Yumra replied, "If Walju wants to know heavenly secrets, she must abide by the laws of the underworld. Besides, Walju signed this pledge herself. I couldn't stop her." Hearing King Yumra say she couldn't be stopped, Guai retorted that then the king couldn't stop him either. He would take Walju's punishment upon himself. Therefore, he begged King Yumra to just approve it. King Yumra was being tormented by the two of them to the point of a splitting headache. Very quickly, Inspector Guai returned, elated. He excitedly embraced the emissary, saying everything was now settled. Walju's pledge had been nullified. Hearing this, the emissary was so furious he pushed Inspector Guai away, then quickly explained that he was just overjoyed and had used a bit too much force. But why had things changed? Inspector Guai lied, saying that years ago when he was a police officer in the underworld, he had secretly learned about some high-ranking officials under King Yumra who were corrupt. He now used that information as leverage with King Yumra to cancel the pledge. Hearing this, Walju was incredibly grateful to Inspector Guai. The emissary asked for confirmation one more time. "So, Walju doesn't have to go to hell anymore?" Chief Guai said it wasn't certain yet. Now, they still had to help 2 more people. They had to complete this within 4 days to avoid being condemned to hell. So, they really needed to work hard, and the emissary's plan also needed to be expedited. But he was moving so quickly because he was heading to Jai Hai's place. He wore a despicable expression and asked Jai Hai if she wanted to go to her son. Then, the emissary added that he feared she wouldn't be able to go anymore. Jai Hai immediately sensed danger. Then he slowly approached her and transformed into one Hyung. Jai Hai, startled, exclaimed, "Aren't you supposed to be in hell?" Unexpectedly, one Hyung replied, "I'm here to invite your son and Walju to hell, and of course, you're invited too." It was clear Jai Hai was in a perilous situation. Won Hyung was doing this because Jai Hai knew Wall Ju had to help 100,000 people resolve their regrets to be freed, and Jai Hai herself was one of those with regrets. To sabotage Wall Ju's mission, Won Hyung intended to eliminate anyone she was meant to help, regardless of who they were, especially since Jai Hai was one of them. Wall Ju still had no idea what was happening. She was looking for Kang Bi when she suddenly saw him talking with Yo Rin. Then Kang Bi abruptly said to Yo Rin, "You're working, but I'm in love." This line made Wall Ju's heart skip a beat, because 500 years ago, that wretched crown prince had said the exact same thing to her. But then Kang Bi continued, "Even if I'm not by your side, you're always in my heart, only heaven knows." This line, too, was identical to what that despicable prince had said. After Yo Rin walked away, Wall Ju asked Kang Bi, "Where did you hear those lines you just used?" Kang Bi, looking quite pleased with himself, even asked Wall Ju, "What do you think? Pretty sweet, huh?" But Wall Ju was desperate to know where Kang Bi had learned them. Kang Bi didn't understand why Wall Ju wanted to know but still told her. Who else? Chief Guai, of course. At that moment, Wall Ju felt like she'd been struck by lightning. "Who are you, really?" she demanded. Chief Guai feigned innocence. "Me? Guai?" Wall Ju retorted. "Fine. If you don't want to admit it, I won't call you out." She poured herself a drink, trying to compose herself. Chief Guai, sensing the tense atmosphere, made an excuse about buying food to step out. By now, all of Wall Ju's anger had turned into tears, but she couldn't swallow this 5,000-year-old resentment. So, she ran to the matron's place to vent. After letting out her anger, Wall Ju noticed the matron was extremely calm. Could it be she already knew Chief Guai's identity? No way. Wall Ju said angrily that just seeing Chief Guai reminded her of that ill-fated connection from 500 years ago. She had to speed up completing her mission and get out of there. That evening, the Pacha bar was unusually crowded. Wall Ju, still fuming, was taking her frustration out on her tasks, slamming things around. Kang Bi and Chief Guai saw this and silently understood. So, Kang Bi mouthed to Chief Guai, "What's wrong with Wall Ju?" Chief Guai mouthed back, "How would I know?" But neither of them dared to go near and ask, afraid of becoming the target of Wall Ju's wrath. As Kang Bi was heading home, he tentatively asked Chief Guai, "Did you two have a fight?" Chief Guai replied, "No, it's just that Wall Ju wasn't in a very good mood after coming back from the supermarket today." Kang Bi then mentioned that Wall Ju had overheard the romantic lines he'd said to Yo Rin at the supermarket. "She even asked who taught them to me," he added. Chief Guai tensed up. "You didn't tell her, did you?" Kang Bi proudly stated that only Chief Guai, having lived for 500 years, could teach such top-tier romantic lines. Upon hearing this, Chief Guai immediately felt like he'd been completely sold out. Finally, he understood why Wall Ju had been acting so strangely. So, back at the Pacha, he proactively started helping her out. But when someone suddenly starts being overly nice, there's always an ulterior motive. So, Wall Ju dropped the pretense. If they both knew, then they might as well get it all out in the open. Chief Guai said he came to help her. In his past life, he couldn't keep his promise to protect her, so he came in this life to fulfill it. But Wall Ju didn't believe him anymore. Chief Guai had no choice but to go see the emissary. He told the emissary it seemed like someone was obstructing them from reaching their goal. Several people with lingering regrets had been killed at crucial moments. Chief Guai asked the emissary if he knew who it was. The emissary told Chief Guai it was his son, Won Hyung. Chief Guai was very surprised, but the emissary continued, saying he had taken his son down to hell the previous night to continue his punishment, and told Chief Guai to rest assured that everything was fine now. But Chief Guai didn't know that the emissary was actually Won Hyung in disguise. Won Hyung also knew that Chief Guai's group didn't have much time left to complete their mission. And Chief Guai's task now was to help Wall Ju quickly complete her mission so she could be reincarnated. Wall Ju had 2 people left to help to complete her mission, and Kang Bi, meanwhile, wasn't idle either. He was busy on a date. Yo Rin was about to proactively link arms with Kang Bi when a voice warned, "No, don't touch him." This startled Yo Rin badly. Kang Bi asked her what was wrong. She laughed and replied, "Nothing. I thought I misheard something earlier," and so she prepared to make her move again. "Get away! Stay away from him!" This time, she was sure she hadn't misheard. She made an excuse to leave early. Kang Bi had no idea what had happened, but the fact was, they hadn't even managed to hold hands. Rin spent the whole day wondering whose voice it was, when suddenly she spotted a roadside pacha bar. She was feeling frustrated, so she decided to go in for a few drinks. But when she entered, she realized it was Walju's pacha. Walju said since they were friends, drinks were on the house for her today. Little did they know, this drinking session between the two of them would change everyone's destiny. But while Walju was away, Rin finished a whole bottle of soju and still wanted more. So, she picked up an unlabeled bottle of liquor that was nearby. When Walju returned, she saw Rin had transformed into someone else. Walju curiously asked if she'd seen the girl from earlier. This other person, the possessed Rin, turned and irritably snapped at Walju. "You open a pacha and then just wander off." Walju was so surprised she broke out in a sweat. The guest, the spirit, then exclaimed that this liquor was so strong it had forced her to manifest. "Are you Cinnabar?" Walju asked. "That's right, it's me." "What of it?" Cinnabar replied. Walju was incredibly excited to hear this. "You're a sacred object, at the very least. Why would you barge into the dream world like this? This is Walju's territory." But Cinnabar retorted, "Why are you constantly trying to pair Rin up with Kang Bi?" Walju replied, "They genuinely care for each other. I'm just giving them a little nudge." "Then why did you, Cinnabar, speak up and stop Rin from holding Kang Bi's hand?" Walju pressed. Cinnabar stated, "I despised men. Previously, I'd always spoken up to scare off any men who showed interest in Rin. But that tactic didn't work on Kang Bi, so I had no choice but to warn Rin instead." Walju asked if she could just let Rin pursue her romance in peace, but Cinnabar immediately refused. "Because 500 years ago, when I was still the Cinnabar Stone, I would occasionally transform into a human and visit the mortal realm for leisure. Sometimes, I would secretly help people, curing illnesses and warding off evil spirits. Eventually, I met a young man and fell deeply in love. We often met in the evenings. Over time, I gave the young man a small piece of my Cinnabar self. A single grain of Cinnabar could save someone on the brink of death, and this piece was, needless to say, immensely valuable, practically priceless. And the young man promised me he would use it to help the suffering common folk. But my naive self didn't know that such a thing as wicked ambition existed in the world. Gradually, the young man discovered where my true form resided. He suddenly took out a hammer, preparing to shatter the Cinnabar stone. I hastily manifested and asked him, 'Do you realize you're trying to destroy my true form? If the Chuza stone is shattered, I too will die.' 'But what does this have to do with me?' That young man retorted. Right now, all he knew was that he was preparing to raise an army and needed to trade with fragments of the Chuza stone. It was only then that she realized the young man before her was plotting a rebellion. She immediately tried to stop him, but he, showing no regard for their past bond, directly smashed the Chuza stone. At that moment, Walju finally understood how tragically Chusa had died. Chusa asked Walju if she had ever been hurt by a man. Walju replied that she had been deeply wounded, and even now, the pain had not subsided. This made Chusa despise the creature known as man all the more. But then came the crucial point. Walju asked her why she was avoiding that particular man. Chusa explained that one night, she discovered he wasn't a good person. Though it was dark, she had seen him emerging from someone's house. He was masked and carrying a sword. How curious, she'd thought. Could he be a robber? Chusa scoffed. What was there to steal from that dilapidated temple? He had gone there to kill the witch inside, and then set the entire house ablaze. Chusa added with regret that not long after, the witch's daughter also met her end. Truly a tragic mother and daughter. Walju probed. That scumbag, his name is W, isn't it? Chusa was startled. How did you know? Because Walju remembered how, when her own mother died, she had wandered the streets like a lost soul. Just then, she saw W and immediately felt as if she had found her savior. She rushed to tell him her mother had been murdered, but then she suddenly noticed his hand was injured. However, W Hong/1 Hyung explained that while he was under orders to escort her, he encountered assassins fleeing from her house and engaged them in a fight. After pursuing them, he returned to find her house already engulfed in flames. At that time, she had wanted to beg him to take her to the Crown Prince. But Walju said the Crown Prince had asked W to tell her that he was soon to be married and urged her to leave the area quickly. That statement was the final straw that crushed her. So, she went to see Inspector Guai to get clarity on the events of 500 years ago. And thanks to this conversation, the resentment Walju had harbored for the past 500 years instantly turned to ash. Ladies, remember this: when you're in a foul mood, you absolutely must not go drinking at a roadside tavern. Because it's highly possible that what you're drinking isn't just alcohol. You might not even remember how you got home the next day. To solve a problem, you must go to the one who created it. She went to see Kang Bi. First, she apologized to him, explaining that ever since she was young, she'd had an aversion to physical contact with others, so perhaps she had been overly frightened the day before, and she hoped he wouldn't misunderstand. Kang Bi said it was fine. After all, we're both special, aren't we? The word special made Yo Rin suddenly realize that when Kang Bi next saw Walju, he should thank her on Yo Rin's behalf. Last night, she had gone to Walju's tavern and had a bit too much to drink. Walju must have taken her home. Hearing this, Kang Bi immediately asked if she had drunk from the spherical liquor bottle. Yo Rin, assuming Chin is Yo Rin or a typo, even complained, "No wonder my tongue tingled when I drank it. I got drunk after just one sip." Kang Bi knew Yo Rin had entered a dream state, and Walju, after witnessing Yo Rin's dream, had gone to find Inspector Guai to ask about the events of 500 years ago. She asked Inspector Guai if Guai was the one who had plotted treason and killed her mother. He apologized, explaining that by the time he realized what was happening, it was already too late. 500 years ago, the night one Hyung W broke into her home was the very night the Crown Prince had planned to propose to her. But when he discovered Walju was dead, the Crown Prince became determined to seek revenge. The Crown Prince intentionally played along with W's scheme, agreeing to marry W's younger sister. But during the wedding ceremony, the Crown Prince launched his counterattack. In front of everyone, the Crown Prince ordered the arrest of the traitor One Hyung Hunghwa, catching him completely off guard. But he still tried to argue, insisting he was completely loyal to the royal court. The Crown Prince showed his old friend no mercy whatsoever, declaring, "You secretly amassed weapons and recruited soldiers to build your power base. You betrayed your own father and sister, and you even murdered an innocent mother and daughter." W's One Hyung's father felt a chill run down his spine upon hearing this. Yet, W remained unrepentant, claiming the witch had enchanted the Crown Prince, and he had only killed the mother and daughter to help the prince. This statement struck a raw nerve with the Crown Prince, so he immediately drew his sword and cut One Hyung down. Next, the Crown Prince went beneath the sacred tree and took out the ring he never had the chance to give Walju. He vowed that once he found her, he would fulfill his promise to protect her for all eternity. Hearing this, Walju was deeply moved. Finally, Inspector Guai took out the 5,000-year-old ring and placed it on Walju's hand. This was the moment they had both waited 500 years for. It felt as if everything had just happened yesterday. If not for W's One Hyung's interference, they might have had a large family by now, with many children and grandchildren. The issues between Walju and Inspector Guai had been resolved. But when Inspector Guai suddenly saw a child pass by, he couldn't help but watch the little girl. Walju asked him if he liked children very much. Inspector Guai blurted out, "Who doesn't like children?" Walju hesitated, about to tell Inspector Guai that they had a child. But before she could speak, Inspector Guai cut her off. "There are only 3 days left. We need to quickly find the remaining 2 people." In the end, Inspector Guai still didn't know he had a child. Meanwhile, the emissary noticed that the roadside tavern had suddenly closed. "Bentor, this seems like a new name or a typo. Possibly for Guai or another character. I will assume it's the emissary speaking to Kang Bi." Asked Kang Bi where the other 2 had gone. Kang Bi wondered. Could it be related to what happened with Yo Rin last night? Last night, Walju had entered Yo Rin's dream. The emissary curiously asked who Yo Rin was. Kang Bi, beaming with pride, replied, "She's the one I love." Upon hearing this, the emissary knew this was another person with regrets who needed help. To sabotage Walju's mission, he targeted Yo Rin Jane. But just as he was about to make his move, Inspector Guai called out to him, asking if he had been very busy lately. He also mentioned that Guai had been in a very good mood recently, and would invite the emissary for a meal and a heart-to-heart when he had time. Meanwhile, as Yo Rin was on her way home, Wal Ju Wdu, assuming this is Wal Ju, suddenly appeared and walked with her, offering to accompany her for a stretch and saying she'd specially bought her a milk tea. So, Yo Rin, without any hesitation, took a sip and found the taste quite unique. At this moment, Wal Ju muttered to herself, "Just get some sleep, and everything will be fine when you wake up." Then, Chusa, emerging from within Yo Rin's body, appeared and asked Wal Ju why she had summoned her. Wal Ju said, "I came to thank you. Thanks to you, I was able to resolve a 5-year-old misunderstanding. So, I will also help you erase your resentment towards men." After that, Yo Rin Chin was able to touch Kang Bi. Chusa, residing within her, no longer hindered her, and just like that, they completed another mission. This also meant that now they only needed to find the last person. When that happened, Wal Ju would achieve great success and be reincarnated. But when the emissary realized there was only one person left, he grew anxious and prepared to act recklessly. Just how far can extreme anxiety push someone to recklessness? The emissary grabbed Wal Ju by the throat, hissing with hatred. "If it weren't for your appearance, I would have had everything long ago. I wouldn't have had to suffer in hell for 500 years. Just then, Kang Bi returned and saw this. He rushed over, urging the emissary to calm down. "Can't we sit down and talk things over properly?" But unexpectedly, this wasn't the real emissary. He used magic to fling Kang Bi aside and tightened his grip on Wal Ju's likely Wal Ju throat. Meanwhile, the king of Hell Yama was wondering why the emissary had suddenly stopped coming to work for several days and couldn't be contacted. Fan greeted Guai, surprised because just 2 days prior, they had been sharing a meal. Then, he sprinted back to the tavern with all his might. Just then, the entire tavern began to shake violently, and Kang Bi was seen completely engulfed in flames. Guai and the messenger watched, stunned. "Sacred tree, get out of me," Kang Bi roared. Then, he slowly advanced towards the messenger. The messenger attacked, but Kang Bi effortlessly swatted him away. It was clear that even 10 of him would be no match for the sacred tree's power. With a gentle push from Kang Bi, one Hyung was forced out of the messenger's body. By the time Thon Cha Guai arrived, one Hyung had transformed into a puff of black smoke and vanished. Kang Bi then promptly collapsed. Wal Ju could never have imagined that the child she had painstakingly searched for all those years had been right beside her all along. Later, Wal Ju told Thon Cha Guai, "We once had a child together." Guai wondered aloud, could it possibly be Kang Bi? Thon Cha Guai examined Kang Bi closely. He, too, realized that Kang Bi's unique constitution wasn't due to the spiritual insight portal, but from the sacred tree itself. That was why his efforts with Chusa hadn't been able to close the spiritual insight portal. They had to wait for Wal Ju to resolve the lingering grudges of 100,000 souls. And now, they only had one final person remaining. Eager to quickly complete their mission, they rushed out to the streets, searching for people burdened by sorrow. However, upon arrival, they found people merely exercising on a bridge. Meanwhile, Wal Ju sought out homeless individuals, certain they would have grievances to unburden. But those individuals had lost their will to live, lacking the energy to even consider others. One day, when Kang Bi awoke, his head suddenly throbbed with intense pain. Images of the sacred tree flashed through his mind. He found himself standing before the sacred tree, witnessing everything. At that moment, one Hyung also learned that Kang Bi was the son of the crown prince and Wal Ju. This was the perfect opportunity to make them experience the true agony of separation by life and death. When Kang Bi regained consciousness, he found himself as a high school student. He had a TV-loving father and a constantly nagging mother. Occasionally, his mother would even praise him. But all of this was merely Kang Bi's dream. Wal Ju could only enter his dreamscape to compensate for the love-deprived childhood Kang Bi had endured. Upon awakening, the messenger felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. He had failed to raise his son to be a good person, but he devised a plan that could resolve everything. He would become the tavern's final customer. He believed his failings as a father had driven his son further down a path of wrongdoing. He hoped his son could let go of everything and forgive this father who had shirked his duties. But they remained unaware that Wan Hyung still considered Wal Ju stubbornly unenlightened, refusing to see reason. He then suddenly summoned another being, preparing to wreak havoc. Meanwhile, as Walju and Inspector Guai were trying to find Wan Haiyang's hiding place, the messenger's assistant arrived, claiming to have seen Wan Haiyang. Upon hearing this, the two quickly followed the assistant. Inspector Guai told Walju to stay at the tavern, assuring her he could handle it alone. He even prepared to give her a peach wood dagger for protection, just in case. But Walju had no idea that this venture would lead to her and Guai being separated by life and death. Looking at the peach wood dagger Guai had left for her, she knew their love had never faded. But suddenly, she sensed a presence behind her. So, she tried to remain calm and put the dagger away. Meanwhile, Fan Cha Guai was led to a warehouse. He wondered aloud why Wan Haiyang wasn't there, to which the assistant replied, "The moment you followed me here, you had already lost." Elsewhere, Wan Haiyang was metaphorically rubbing salt into Walju's wounds. He revealed that 500 years ago, he had intended to kill her, but her mother had unexpectedly died in her stead. Walju struggled to suppress her fury, telling Wan Haiyang that any mother would willingly sacrifice everything for her child. Just like Wan Haiyang's own father, she continued, who, to atone for the wrongs Wan Haiyang committed and to spare him from eternal torment in the netherworld, gave up his chance at reincarnation to remain an eternal messenger in the afterlife. At this, it seemed Wan Haiyang rediscovered a flicker of familial connection. Walju continued, "So, his deepest regret was not being able to give you love. He wants to meet you to ask for your forgiveness." Hearing this, Wan Haiyang grew even more incensed, to think that to complete Walju's mission, his own father had sold him out to them. Walju tried to explain that it wasn't like that. But Wan Haiyang sneered, saying he wouldn't kill her. Instead, he would make her experience the agony of watching those she cherished die, one by one, before her very eyes. Walju knew he intended to harm Kang Bi. Just then, Yo Rin arrived to see Walju, only to find her collapsed on the ground. At that moment, Fan Cha Guai also returned. As he helped Walju sit up, she immediately cried out that Kang Bi was in danger. And by now, Kang Bi had been tricked by someone disguised as Walju and lured to the warehouse. Kang Bi went ahead to investigate. Suddenly, the imposter Walju transformed back into Wan Haiyang. This despicable villain, it turned out, would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. He tied Kang Bi up in the warehouse. Kang Bi warned, "If you do this, Inspector Guai will not spare you." Wan Haiyang began to sow discord, saying that they Walju and Guai were the ones who had made him into someone with a special constitution. Unexpectedly, Kang Bi retorted, "They are my parents. They toiled in the mortal realm for 500 years, all for me." His words were clearly heard by Walju, who was standing outside. Unbeknownst to them, Wan Haiyang had already prepared the dream-inducing wine. Kang Bi was terrified at the sight of it, knowing this wine couldn't be consumed carelessly. If Walju didn't design the dreamscape beforehand, drinking it would transport the drinker to an incredibly dark place. But this was precisely what Wan Haiyang desired. He forced the dream-inducing wine down Kang Bi's throat, intending to use the darkness of the dream realm to kill him, ensuring he could never escape, for all eternity. But just at that critical moment, a blade suddenly appeared. The two once close brothers began to duel, while Walju, now present, was untying Kang Bi. Just as Inspector Guai was about to apprehend Wan Haiyang and bring him to justice, Wan Haiyang magically redirected the blade, sending it straight towards Kang Bi. Seeing this, Walju threw herself in front of her son. Yet, a second later, Walju was unharmed. The blade had pierced straight through Guai. In that instant, Wan Haiyang seized the opportunity to enter Kang Bi's dream. Kang Bi was scared to death, for if he fell, below him lay a bottomless abyss. On the other side, Guai's spirit dissipated, and he vanished instantly from the mortal realm, while Kang Bi was also being dragged by Wan Haiyang towards the precipice. Suddenly, a snap of fingers echoed, and everything froze. Walju had saved Kang Bi. Walju had thought that within her dream domain, she could control everything, but unexpectedly, Wan Haiyang broke free from her control and lunged at her. In that hair-raising moment, Kang Bi managed to grab Walju's hand, but Wan Haiyang successfully dragged Walju over the edge. However, Walju didn't want to implicate Kang Bi, so she told him to let go, saying that his living well would be her greatest contentment. In the end, Walju still plunged into the abyss. Simultaneously, the mystical pop-up bar that had been open for 500 years also vanished. From then on, Kang Bi became an ordinary person, but he deeply missed the parents he had only just been reunited with. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks because the pop-up bar, which had disappeared for months, abruptly reappeared. It turned out that when Walju reported to King Yumra, king of the underworld, she was informed that by ultimately using herself to save Kang Bi, she was considered to have fulfilled the wish of the 100,000 soul. She could then be reincarnated. King Yumra even offered her reincarnation as a nobleman's daughter or a famous star. But Walju said she didn't want to reincarnate. She wanted to continue returning to the mortal realm to help people fulfill their lingering regrets. Hearing this, King Yumra said, "Very well, and as a bonus, I'll give you a gift." This moment, they have waited far too long for it.